Thank you for joining us. Please enjoy this video from Father Houston.
Brothers and sisters of the great parish, St. Vincent de Paul, it is your humble servant, Father Houston Okoma, here to share a few words about the great gift of poverty, chastity, and obedience. These are called the Evangelical Counsels. They are promises or vows that clergy and religious take when understanding and embracing the gift of service. Now, you might say, well, why are those things necessary? Well, they're necessary because they free us so that our eyes, our minds may be focused on the particular task at hand, which is ideally, above all, service to God. Now, service to God can take on many forms. It could take on the priesthood. It could take on being a mother or a father. It could take on actually being a son or a daughter. It could take on the great task of being a spouse. We can also see service in various forms as how it's actualized in the world, be it in the medical field or even in the service industry. But service is something that it comes natural to human beings. We are created with an opportunity to give, and yet also with the same opportunity to receive. There's a certain mutuality in mankind that we experience, and it is a participation in who God is. If God is love, that means that there's a love that exists that can be exchanged, and that there's a perpetual exchange in the entity of God, and so forth. We human beings experience that in the exchange we receive and give to one another. However, we do so not necessarily seeking our own good necessarily, or the other person's own good as we are able to see it or think or predict, but as God calls us. And the ability to see clearly how the Lord calls us is usually done by embracing these counsels of poverty, chastity, and obedience. For instance, with the gift of poverty, we're able to, for instance, know that it's not necessarily the riches that I have or the things that I feel like I'm able to give should drive us to service. It's more so the Lord's own calling, the Lord's own prompting, knowing that the gifts and the talents that we have don't define us. They are the things that we are able to use in order to serve. Meaning, if the Lord is calling us to be dormant, and we are not happy with that, sometimes we think that dormancy defines who we are. But if the Lord is just saying, really, just wait, hold on, be at peace. I know what qualities you have to offer. Just listen to me. Sometimes we do not embrace that poverty and feel like we have to fill up our agenda, our task book, just to maybe validate who we are, instead of embracing who we truly are and understanding what we are not. If there's anything to be understood with the gift of poverty, is that we are nothing without God. And if only we just take the time out just to realize who we are and give God the opportunity to show us who we are. This is the gift of poverty. Not that we have riches or put them aside, but the fact that we are nothing without God. And this nothingness without God gives us the opportunity to be defined by what exists and lasts forever. Fortunately, the Lord esteems us as his beloved sons and daughters, meaning embracing this gift of poverty is one that sets us free and allows us to see clearly how we are called to serve. The other counsel you might think of is chastity. Chastity, a lot of times may have the sexual connotation or the bent to it. But chastity is even more than that. I like to summarize chastity as more of embracing what we are called to do, or focusing on what is our own. For instance, you know clearly that the gift of the priesthood, as a Roman Catholic priest, enables me to embrace this great gift with great intentionality. For instance, I'm not married, nor will I ever be. And that frees me up to be able to serve the many without any other responsibility or primary responsibility. If someone calls in the night and they call for an anointing, I'm not looking to my left or looking to my right to say, hey, wifey, I got to go anoint this person. Or kids, hey, I'm going to leave this baseball game and go and do that. There's a certain freedom in doing that. Not to say that having a wife and kids is bad at all. It's not. It's just that in this responsibility that the Lord has given me, there's a certain freeness and a certain accessibility that the Lord is calling me to embrace so as to serve his people well, the way Christ himself served us well while he was on earth, and also currently as his disciples as he ascended into heaven. And so the gift of chastity enables us to focus on what is ours, knowing that even though, you might not be a priest, even though married individuals are called to focus on what is theirs is not necessarily the gift that we can see from afar, but it is in the present. And the Lord is calling us to be stewards of that particular gift. Sometimes we forget that, and we look across, we look to the side. We remain jealous of what we do not have, and oftentimes embracing a certain level of pride or a desire or even lust or greed that the Lord is calling us to be free from. Embracing the gift of chastity is embracing the freedom and the goodness that the Lord has to offer in the present moment as we remain present to him to embrace whatever he may be willing to offer in the future. So you have poverty, you have chastity, you also have obedience, and that's a fun gift. Now, the counsel of obedience is very, very interesting. A lot of times you might ask a priest, well, Father, what's the hardest counsel to follow? And I might say it's probably obedience. It's hard to be obedient. We all have our ways. We agree, we disagree with different things, with different people. Even in a spousal relationship, every couple doesn't agree on every single issue or every single topic. And so with obedience, it's more of a cooperation, allowing ourselves to surrender our thoughts, surrender our actions, more so for the good of the community, of the group, of the team. This doesn't mean that you remain mute. This doesn't mean that you don't have an opinion. It just means that if your opinion must be accomplished the way you desire every single time, instead of being sacrificed for the betterment of the group, then that means that we're not seeing things with great clarity or freedom that the Lord gives us the opportunity to do. For instance, fortunately, our boss, our leader, our pastor is great and has served this parish well for many, 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 many years and will continue to do so. Let's just say I decided to go to the rectory and he asked me to buy a box of Cheerios, and I said, no, I'm just going to go ahead and get this Frosted Flakes, right? I then insert a moment of division that is not cooperative for a team. You can extrapolate this to many other examples, many different ways in which we are called to cooperate and not necessarily disdain or call into a new world order. Notice how with cooperation, you bridge the divide for division and allow ourselves to move as one team, as one accord, because there is a goal in mind. And this is how the Lord calls us to discipleship. That through obedience, through proper authorities, we work to cooperate to help this team move forward and not remain divided and in the back. The Lord gives us these counsels as a way to be free, as a way to think clearly, as a way to discern how he's calling us to serve in the moment. Meaning that when we embrace these things, we embrace the fact that the Lord has called us to be instruments of his grace and not grace in and of itself. He has called us to be cooperators with his law and not the law itself. He has called us to be his own sons and daughters and not God, our own selves. Sure, we have the ability to represent, to recreate instances of God's love and mercy, but we're called to do that as he wills. And you may agree with me that sometimes our will is limited. Our knowledge is limited. The way we see life can be limited. Who is not limited? It is God, whom we're called to cooperate with, giving the present times, given the channels of cooperation that he has allowed us to embrace. Brothers and sisters, today and always, we remain at the service of God, knowing that he's calling us to be free. Let us do whatever it takes to continuously establish that level of freedom, and cooperating with that level of freedom, and making sure that when we make decisions, they are discerned with great clarity and also with great freedom, the freedom that the Lord himself has given us at the very moment of our conception, and a freedom that we will be embraced in its entirety, in its fullness, in total glory, when we make it home to heaven.